Okay, our last speaker, before we go to the question and answer discussion section, is Brentsville Supervisor Jeanine Lawson, who has been serving on the Board of County Supervisors since December 2014. Jeanine campaigned as a strong advocate of the rural Crescent and remains committed to protecting its preservation. Currently, Supervisor Lawson represents the BOCS on the Ag and Forestal District Advisory Committee, as well as the Virginia Association of Counties Environment and Agriculture Steering Committee. She grew up in rural Idaho, thank you. I'm reading it wrong. She grew up in rural Iowa, earning a BA degree from the University of Northern Iowa. Supervisor Lawson and her husband have lived in the Brentsville district since 1995, and they are raising their 2 children there. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, I just got back from Iowa. I was there for a family reunion over the weekend. So I was quick to defend Iowa. We are the land of corn, not potatoes. Okay, well, Michelle Trenna, my aide, is ready to go with our PowerPoint. Before I start, I want to say that Mike May and Charlie Grimes are 2 tough acts to follow. They're both my mentors. I learn a lot from both of these gentlemen, and I hope I can do as well as both of you did. I'll give it a shot. So here we go. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the comprehensive plan, and I'm going to try and coast through this quickly because I know we're all hot. Maybe I was sitting here thinking maybe we should make this side of the room move here and reverse so you guys can be closer to the fans, and same with over here. What do y'all think of that? Are you okay with that? No, they say no. All right, I'll let you all fight that out. Okay, so the comprehensive plan is meant to shape future development for long-range planning growth. And the Board of County Supervisors uses this as our guide, and we as the board cannot stop development, but we can certainly manage it. And Charlie and Mike both explained to you what was going on back in the 90s with this sudden growth in the county, actually probably in the 80s too. And so some decisions were made, and like Mike said, the rural Crescent was created out of a fiscal matter and sensible land use. And I completely agree with the philosophy of it because I'm a fiscal conservative, and our land use decisions that our board makes are not mutually exclusive to our fiscal decisions. They're intertwined. And so when we do vote to approve development, whether it's residential or commercial, those have fiscal impacts. And I think they did a great job of explaining that. So I would say that it's the Board of County Supervisors' responsibility to direct development to the appropriate areas and to also prevent inappropriate development in certain areas. And I'll give you an example that in 2016, we received constituent complaints because of a board decision that was made 25 years ago when the board, which he and I were not on, approved Virginia Oaks development off of Highway 29. Virginia Oaks is a beautiful community, but where the board made an error in judgment, in my opinion, is to approve a section of that housing development that was adjacent to an industrial park, Sam's Junkyard, that had preceded any plans for residential development next to it. So naturally, when folks buy houses adjacent to an industrial park and they don't like the noise that's coming out of the park, guess who they call? They call Supervisor Lawson, or I'm sure Supervisor Covington before me fielded a lot of those calls. Those are responsibilities that the board really needs to pay close attention to when we make land use decisions like that. Okay, so Michelle, you can go to that beautiful view of rural Prince William County. So I get to talk to you tonight about some tools that we can use to preserve the rural area And I hope that each one of you, regardless of how you came in, what your position in the rural area is, I believe, or I hope, that you're gonna leave here with something that you might see that could be appealing for preservation, regardless of where you are on the issue. So the first thing, first tool that we can use in the box is the rural preservation study that the county, the board approved a few years ago. We had some consultants come down and spend a lot of time looking at our policies and engaging with the community, lots of stakeholders. Mike was on the board. I was actually, I participated as a citizen. And one of the suggestions that they gave the board, which we will consider in a couple months adopting, is to hire a county staff employee that their sole purpose is to promote our agricultural community. And I think, I think that's a great idea, so I certainly support that. And then we've got some slides that are gonna show, this is the slide for agritourism. We have an annual, this is tool number 2, our agritourism and agribusiness need to be promoted more. We need to do a better job, like Loudoun County does, of promoting these assets that we have in the rural area. So we've got our annual farm tour, we've got LaGrange Winery, and I would also say that here we have agribusiness, so we have Yankee Farms, which is, I know they have products like strawberries and pumpkins where you can go out and pick your own. Prince William County is, and I sound probably a little biased when I say this, and I don't mean to be, but we're not going to be, the competitive market for the Iowa corn or Illinois soybeans. We're not going to get there. But we can be competitive on specific crops. I don't know if Tom Truesdale is here, but he has a hydroponic lettuce farm that, could certain, I don't know who he sells his lettuce to, but I'm thinking of a lot of the farm to table restaurants that are becoming more and more popular. That's something we can tap into if we're not already, and promote those. Okay, what's our next slide? We've got the Agricultural and Forest District. So I represent the board on this district advisory committee. And we have landowners who have been approved to go through an application process for the AFD. And once you're approved, your land is approved in this district, it's another layer or a tool or layer of protection. And then following that, and it's really meant to be, it's allowed by the state, and it's meant to be a protection for working farms and forest land. And following that, we also have another tool known as the Use Value Assessment Program. And this is a great tax incentive for our large landowners, and they have to qualify for it, and their categories are agricultural, horticultural, open space, and forestry. Those are the 4 categories that you have to meet one of them. And because of the tax incentives that we, the county, offer, we, on an annual basis, meaning we, the county, can defer $4.5 million to these landowners, so they have a great tax incentive to enter into that use value assessment program. So again, that's something else that I think, who was it, Charlie, that hit on that maybe we should do a better job of promoting that, and obviously that helps preserve that open space and farmland. Okay, and then another tool in the box is our conservation easements. And this is a farm, it's actually my favorite piece of land in Prince William County is Buckland Farm. Raise your hand if you're familiar with Buckland. So a lot of you are. What a beautiful piece of property off of Vent Hill Road, and it borders with Fauquier County. So conservation easements are legally binding agreements with a landowner and either a land trust or a government agency. And they are obviously meant to preserve that piece of land. And the landowner, by entering into the agreement, forfeits future development rights, but they are oftentimes still able to farm on their land. And I believe that our county needs to do a better job of promoting conservation easements. There are federal programs that will do that, tax incentives from the federal level. So if you're a big landowner, you can certainly talk to your accountant about some of those that are offered. Certainly the state, and then there's also private organizations that promote conservation easements like the Piedmont Environmental Council. So that's another tool in our toolbox. And then the last tool that I really want to touch on is called Purchase of Development Rights, PDRs. Yeah, some folks are shaking their head, they're familiar with it. So PDRs is a program that Prince William County is currently not participating in. However, I believe that we do need to participate in this and show a commitment, a financial commitment to the preservation of the rural area. And it also, I believe, is an olive branch to the landowners in the rural area that, you know, would otherwise like to sell and have denser development on their land. And this was created through a task force from the Office of Farmland Preservation under the umbrella of the Virginia Department of Agricultural and Consumer Sciences. So Virginia is 25 million acres. And in 2012, we had dwindled down our farmland and forest land to only 8 million acres. So obviously with the growth of the state of Virginia, there goes the farmland and forest land. So this program was created to help preserve Virginia farmland in particular. And because of that, the state actually has funding for about $1.9 million in the budget right now. And what they do is encourage localities to match funds for the purchase of development rights. So that's something that the board will have to discuss and decide if we want to put our money where our mouth is and start a program for purchase of development rights. And the landowner, of course, would have to apply for the PDR, and it would go through a particular process, which really hasn't been decided exactly. But in order to participate in this program, we, the county, need to pass an ordinance, and we also need to show the fiscal responsibility and certification in order to even qualify to be a participant of the PDRs. And there's two ways that offhand I think that we could look at funding this PDR program, and the first one would be through the rollback taxes from that use value assessment, so the tax deferred program that I talked about earlier. Well, if you are a landowner, you could be subject to, if you've changed the use of your land, you could be subject to rollback taxes that you had been receiving for the last 5 years. Today I checked with our finance department, and in the last few years we've received only about $150,000 on an annual basis from those rollback taxes. However, if our board decides that we want to start accruing that or putting an escrow exactly for the PDR program, that could build up some over time. Or the board can decide that they want to make this commitment through the general fund. Those are, you know, options that the board would have to discuss and agree on. Okay, and then the last issue that I want to touch on that I believe is morally important as much as it is fiscally important, why we need to preserve our rural area, has to do with the Chesapeake Bay watershed. And Kim touched on that a little bit in her opening. So the watershed agreement was established to preserve, or actually to improve, our water quality in the bay, because when I moved out to Virginia in the 90s, I kept seeing all these Save the Bay bumper stickers, and I was like, what is that all about? Well, now I know. So everybody's probably familiar with the watershed agreement for Chesapeake Bay and the purposes of the Clean Water Act. And there are 3 major pollutants that have been damaging the bay over time, and now we are under law to clean up our stormwater. And those 3 major pollutants that you can see here are, this one is nitrogen, a nutrient that pollutes water, and the next one is phosphorus, and then the last one is sediment. But what you'll see from those graphs is The improvements in recent years have come from the agricultural runoff. So they have successfully squeezed as much as they can to improve the water runoff in the agricultural land. Where you'll see the increase of the pollution has been in the urban and suburban runoff. So that's where the problem is. So if we were to bring that dense development out into the rural area, we're also creating not just some watershed problems, but we're going to have a fiscal responsibility also to clean that up. So it's in our fiscal interest also to make sure that for Chesapeake Bay watershed policy that we do not allow that dense development to go out into the rural area. And I can't explain it quite as well as Charlie can. So if you have any questions about it, ask him, not me, okay? And then I just want to end with one of my favorite slides, and I use this for my town hall meetings. Informed citizens equals effective government. I'm impressed that you're all sitting here tonight, roasting in a room of about 100 degrees. And I just think that the more the community learns about the issues, the better off our government as a whole is. So thank you for your time. I hope I didn't speak too long. And Kim, thank you for your commitment to Prince William County and land conservation.
Okay,